I kind of wanted to check in with how we're feeling, because I think the richness of this discussion can be, in the kind of educational framework, can be kind of intense sometimes. Especially for people that are hearing this stuff for the first time, or maybe aren't vegetarian or vegan in the room. I remember I was at dinner with a friend at a famous vegetarian chain restaurant, and my friend wasn't vegetarian or vegan, she was a meat eater. And the server came by and asked us, like, "Oh, are you vegan?" Like, "Yeah, I am." And she asked my friend, "Are you vegan?" "No, I'm not." And her face like turned from a smile to a frown, and in that moment there was this like, the energy kind of just totally shifted, and from a place of like wanting to have a nice dinner together, it turned into this kind of separation. There really wasn't compassion in that exchange. And so it's important to realize these principles, and we talked about this, of like non-judgment, and how they're such a big part of these teachings, but when we're in our actual lives, out there, interacting with people, that's where it really matters. So I grew up in the Bay Area, and when I was growing up, this center didn't exist. And I grew up with a Jain background, but for me it was mostly coming to the Derasar, learning the Nokar mantra, going to India, visiting Paligana and other places, but mostly from like a ritualistic perspective. And I didn't really have a community of Jain friends or anyone around that I could practice with. And so when I moved to San Francisco, I started going to the San Francisco Zen Center. And what was so rich and important for me there was finding a sense of community and people that I could relate to, either because they were my age or because of the work that they were doing in the city as well. And that community and that support that you get is so important in trying to translate everything that you learn. You can read about this stuff, but if you don't practice it and you don't put it into your life, then it's just reading some stuff. And I've been really fortunate, and I have a lot of gratitude for the people that I've found in my life to help me practice what it means to be an intentional person and to have compassion in your life. And I'm not saying I have it, I definitely don't, but it's part of a path, and it's part of just sharing this today with you guys is really nice for me. So I was inspired to be vegan after I did a yoga teacher training, and we watched one of the documentaries, very similar to the one we watched here today, except it was in English and it was supported by PETA. And I've seen lots of those things, but what was really special about, and what really made me change, was the community that I was around and feeling supported by the people around me. And I realized that I had this intention of wanting to be vegan, but I didn't really know how to do it. I would go to Safeway and buy gallons of milk, and that's like the gallon for $2.50. That's what I would do. And I'm like, all right, cut that out. And then I went to Strauss Creamery milk, thinking that it was better. But at the end, there's still this indirect relationship, or some would argue very direct relationship, to milk production being linked to meat production. You can't have both. It's just not economically feasible in the society. And then hens. I was also eating eggs, and I decided to cut that out because I couldn't find a source of eggs that came from a place that if I had those hens, I would treat them the same way. So that's what veganism means to me. It's really about, like, if I had a cow and if I had a hen and I could make it part of my life and part of the way that I live, I might reconsider, but I can't do that right now. So that's why I'm making this decision. And I've kind of talked about my practice of meditation a bit, and how this decision to take action has come from that. And so I think it's really important to just settle into how we feel about these kinds of issues and recognize that if we have judgment, if we have frustration about it, if we're a little angry or we don't know, that we acknowledge that and share that with friends and people that you can have conversations with. None of this stuff can happen without interpersonal relationships and talking to other people about it. So what I want to do next is do a little bit of a meditation, and this is something that I would do frequently with a group of friends in San Francisco and at the Zen Center. And so what I'm going to encourage everyone to do is just settle into a comfortable seated position. And if most of you are in chairs, you can sit on the ground if you'd like. But make sure that your feet are rested on the floor and that your knees are above your ankles. You can close your eyes if you'd like, or keep them open, and just focus 3 feet ahead of you. And just take a couple deep breaths. Then bring your awareness back to your posture. Your sitting bones are going to be firmly planted into the seat. And your shoulders are over your hips. And feel free to sway from side to side until you find the center point that your body just naturally falls into. You can tuck your chin down slightly. And then at the top of your head, imagine that there's a string pulling you towards the ceiling. So it's creating this upright posture from the base of your sitting bones to the top of the back of your head, supporting the natural curve of your spine. Bring awareness to your shoulders, any tension that you might have having been seated for so long. A sense of curiosity too. And then bring your awareness to your breathing. Not trying to quicken the breath or slow it down, but just paying attention to the natural rhythm that it has right now. I'm going to offer 2 different ways of focusing on the breath. The first is to, with each inhale, count 1, and then with each exhale, count 2. Inhale, 3, exhale, 4, and then keep going until a thought comes through your mind, distracts you, and then come back to 1. Approaching these thoughts with curiosity, not pushing them away or with any judgment. And the second approach is to focus on the inhale and the exhale, and the midpoint between the inhale and the exhale, where the inhale turns into the exhale. Like throwing a ball into the air when it goes up, and then at a transition point where it turns back down. Almost like creating a wave. Continue focusing your awareness on your breath. if you're ready, you can expand your awareness from your breath to include any other body sensations that might be going on. The coolness of the floor on your feet. Any draft you can feel behind your ears. The sound of my voice hitting your ears. Mind wanders because you're human, bring it back to the breath or a body sensation or something that grounds you in this moment. This isn't a competition. There's no judgment here. When you're ready, slowly bring your awareness back into the room, the people around you. Open your eyes. One thing that I hope is that we can do more of that here at the Jain Center, and being introduced into a religion, I think is you can see it from the way that it might look. Kind of it gives up an outward expression. So you might see people just going to the Darasur and praying and offering things and then leaving and donating money, and it can be, there's a lot of guidance, and I think what's really helpful is having the elders teach and to be part of this kind of learning process, because if you just get that outward perception, then it seems like a very ritualistic way of going about spirituality in your life. So yeah, I'd just like to say that. And then when we go out of this room and eat this delicious meal and receive what's been prepared for us, I think it's important to reflect on the effort that has been put into creating that food, the nourishment that we're going to get from it, and knowing that each serving that we get is then going to become part of us, and see if that kind of evokes a sense of gratitude. And if not, it's okay. But it's nice to have that intention. That's something that I've appreciated whenever we're having a meal, is to have an intention of like a bit of silence and accepting what's being given. So with that, I'd just like to pass it back to